Welcome back, everybody, to the Go Blue with Stu podcast. I am, of course, Stuart Douglas. And today, our special guest, if you're watching this on video, to my left is the one and only Nancy Douglas, my mother. Hello, Nancy. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Stuart. Thank you. He told me to look interested, so I'm going to try my best.
Great start. Great start. I wanted to start off the podcast with a pretty good story about how you didn't believe in me when I was going to commit to Michigan.
Oh, geez, Stuart. You could have forewarned me about this one.
Do you remember that?
Well, see, this is interesting. And this is a lesson for parents and for kids, is that one person hears it one way because of what's going on inside of them. And the person actually saying it is meaning something totally different.
No, I knew you believed in me.
So there's that.
It was just very funny, and I'll tell the people the story. It was coming down to waiting for Michigan to offer me the scholarship when I needed what was roughly 47 kids to pass up the scholarship before they gave it to me. And then that and choosing between them and Harvard.
Yep.
And the opportunity to, step into Harvard and basically be able to go and shoot and score and play how I wanted right away. And we were in our second house in Carmel in my room talking about it. And I was like, no, I want to go to Michigan. And
You're going to remind me of this again.
You were like, are you sure? And you laid out all of the pros and cons of everything. And me, especially when
that was before the offer came in.
Yes, it was take Harvard or wait for Michigan. I was like, no, I want to wait.
Yep.
And for me as a teenager, when I was like, my mind was set, I was set. And I'm still pretty much like that. But you were like, I had said it. I had said I was set on it. I was going to do it. And that was supposed to be like the end of the conversation for me. And for you, it was what?
Well, it was fear that everything, and I may cry during this podcast.
Good. You'll be the first.
That everything that you had worked towards, and again, I think any parent who might be listening who has a kid that's athletic and has promise, everything you've worked toward, I was concerned wasn't going to happen for you. And it had nothing to do with my belief in you. I knew from 7th grade, as objective as I tried to be and not be one of those parents who thought my kid was, oh my God, so talented, but I knew there was something there. And I always believed in you, and you know that. Mm-hmm. I was scared to death that you weren't going to get what you wanted. And I think also selfishly, and again, you're asking me to go back in memory. So it's, it's kind of faded a little bit, but I think, for me, I wanted it to be over.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be over. Recruiting is as blessed and lucky as we were to go through that experience. It's like everything in life. It can be fabulous, but it can also simultaneously be incredibly stressful. And it was. So I wanted it to be over. And I think selfishly, I wanted it to be over for me. I was so jacked up. And I apologize for that. I think you and I have talked about that before. I was so jacked up and you were jacked up. And I wanted at that point, let's just get this over with. What could be horrible about going to Harvard? And also, and you and I have talked about this, I know you really well. I knew you really well back then. And I still really, really know you as a mother knows all of her children. And I wanted you to be a big fish in a small pond, because I knew that you could really shine. Did I understand what was going to happen at Michigan? No, I didn't understand. I never got that far in my head.
Yeah.
I just wanted it to be over for all of us. And I thought Harvard was just a great idea for so many reasons.
I guess if I could go back and give advice to myself or any kid, it's small ponds are fine. Small ponds can be great.
Well, look at some of the great NBA players that have come from, and great professional players that have come from small ponds.
It doesn't matter.
It does not matter. It does not matter. But I wouldn't, and I know you wouldn't either, trade the experience at Michigan for anything. No. And it turned out to be obviously phenomenal. And again, it's trying to be as objective as I possibly can. what you and Novak and JMO and, what you did for the program is undoubtedly set it on a great trajectory.
Yeah.
So, but back then it was incredibly stressful.
No, recruiting, I always said I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy.
I wouldn't either.
I've gone through a divorce, and I think that's still my top. Recruiting is still one of the top most stressful things I've ever experienced.
Well, yeah, because you want something so very much, and
you don't know what's real,
and you don't know what's right, and you tend to start questioning your own skill set or your own decision-making abilities, because they're all telling you things that, in the end is exactly what they think you want to hear. But the funniest recruiting story, and I'm kind of digressing here, so you can pull me back if you want to, was when we went to IU and Calvin Sampson pulled your dad and I into his office, and he's sitting there talking, and I'm looking around, I'm going, this is IU. My son can play for IU. This is great. This is great. And your dad's just sitting there like, stone face. And all of a sudden Calvin Sampson goes, I know more than any other parent about basketball. and I see your dad, like I could just see the smoke coming out of his ears. And I think your dad said, well, I sure hope so, or something like that.
That's funny.
And I don't know. I can't remember if he said it there or afterwards, but we walked out of his office, and I remember, and I looked at your dad. I'm like, IU's interested in Stu. And your dad looks at me and goes, that guy's an asshole.
Oh, it was so upsetting, because the entire time I didn't have to meet him to know I didn't want to play for him.
Yeah.
And like, I just wanted the IU offer just to get him, just to force Michigan's hand.
Yeah.
And in the end, like, it would have been really cool to play for IU. And then they ended up not offering. They offered Matt Roth.
Yep.
And
Anyway.
AAU teammates with Tyler Zeller,
who hated you apparently, right? Or something. Tyler Zeller didn't like you or something?
Matt Roth didn't like me.
Oh, Matt Roth.
Yeah. No, okay. Tyler was fine. That was great.
Okay.
But yeah, it was one of those. I mean, we went down to summer camp. That was a summer camp.
Yep.
I couldn't miss a shot.
Yep.
And of course, you look at me, and every single coach that ever recruited me was like, you're a little more athletic than we thought. And it's like, did you even care to like look? You just looked at me and said that I wasn't athletic enough. I mean, I went to USC, and Tim Floyd was worried that I wasn't athletic enough to guard.
You know what he said to us in his office? He said, I don't think Stewart understands. I don't think Stewart believes in Stewart, or I don't think Stewart understands his talent, or something.
Tim said that?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
You weren't in the room.
That's interesting.
You weren't.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think if I never told you that, that's
no.
Okay.
Because I remember their assistant coach. I went to the elite camp, and their assistant coach was like, he really wanted them to offer me.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad they didn't, because traveling to USC.
And he left, and he's had so many issues. But yeah, just everywhere, just not being athletic enough, not being good enough to sit there. I'm like, I knew I was, but I guess I didn't exude that. That's funny. I didn't realize he said.
Well, you didn't. You always exuded. And again, we've talked about it. And I think, when I used to be on the, whatchamacallit, the Wolverine, where I'd get on the anyway.
Oh, she's infamous on the Hoops, the Wolverine.
Not anymore, blog. But I was. But anyway, people would.
She's told off a few people. We'll get into that later.
People accused you of acting like you didn't care.
Oh yeah.
And it's
because I was such a contrast to Novak.
You were indeed. And I think it's really interesting when people are such a huge fan and they want something to be a certain way, and they don't truly understand who that person is.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to pass judgment. We do it all the time. Like if I get on Twitter or whatever, and somebody says something, and you have an immediate visceral response because it's not what you want. It doesn't fit what you think it should look like. And that's just true of people in general. Do that with other people. But I know in particular that was an issue that people would say about you, that you didn't care. And in fact, it was so contrary to that.
Yeah. You know what's funny? It was another funny story from that IU visit is about in that same realm of not caring was a few years ago, I get a couple texts from friends who are listening to Dan Dockett's show. And Dan was there and he showed us around campus.
I remember.
And I'm so shy that I apparently gave off the image that I didn't care.
Right.
And so he's on air talking about, many years later, talking about me saying I was
an asshole. Didn't he call you an asshole?
Asshole and
I wanted to.
It was very funny. I was like, wait a second. I was just like,
yeah,
so frozen in the whole experience that like,
yeah. And that's a lesson for everybody, to be very careful when you meet somebody and it doesn't look the way you want it to look for whatever reason you need it to. You have to remember that, there's a whole host and a whole range of different personality types, and everybody has a story and everybody has their way of dealing with things. And we have to be very careful. But that was, an impression that I know people had. But anyway, that's off the subject.
Okay, go into what people said on the blogs.
Oh,
they said I didn't care.
I really don't remember.
Oh, come on.
No, I really don't remember, but I do. I think the best thing that ever came out of those blogs was me meeting SoCal, who, hey, SoCal,
if you're listening.
And, and then getting to end up, meeting him and his wife in person. But there were some people that were just disrespectful and rude, and I let them know about it, and they would apologize.
Of course.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Douglas. I'm sorry. And it would be the kind of thing of, I don't care if you don't think my son is talented, but don't be cruel, And again, and you've talked about this, I don't think people understand how difficult it is to be a student athlete. Again, and people don't get me wrong, completely blessed that this one got an education at the University of Michigan.
Education being an operative word there.
Well,
very flexible.
You graduated, well, okay, but you graduated from one of the finest universities in all of the country. And and I didn't have to pay a single dime for any of that. So very appreciative of that. But and again, you've talked about this before, so I don't want to bore people with what they've already heard, but it's not easy, and you're young. And that's a kind of a double whammy, because you're not quite learning how to balance things.
Okay, but give me a story.
I can't. You're asking a 63-year-old woman to remember something that happened 12 years ago. I'd have to go back, which I couldn't do because I don't have access to it anymore.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the guy that I yelled at, and he apologized to me, but it was something about ripping you as just a person who just didn't care.
Yeah. Everyone wanted me to be Novak.
Right.
Everyone wanted me to be that energetic,
right,
that hoorah guy. And
right.
like,
it's not
when actually I can be that, but like, that's not where I'm at my best.
And you never were. You were always, you're like your dad. You're just this even.
No, if you get too high, then you get out of your norm. If you get too low, you're out of your norm. Like, keep me right here, and that's where I'll be at my best.
Right. But I mean, you weren't Novak, but you were certainly a good balance to Novak. And
the irony being like, you couldn't have me and him being the exact same, whether it was low or high. That would have been impossible to lead a team.
Right. But it worked out really well.
Yeah.
It ended up working out really well. So, yeah. But the recruiting thing, again, it's that two-edged sword, because you're thrilled that your child is being recruited to play at a high level, which most kids don't get to do, but you're so stressed out and you're so unsure. And, I remember your dad saying to me while we were going through all of this, because I was talking about the different coaches, and I was like, what's wrong with these people? And your dad said, these types of jobs select for people with large egos. And what do you get when you get somebody with a large ego? And that kind of put things in perspective for me. And I realized then that you know, I it's not that I wanted anybody to hold your hand, far from it.
Right.
But I do think it's important, whether it's a coach or, a CEO or, somebody in a leadership position, to take into consideration the person that they're dealing with, bringing out the best in the person. And that goes for relationships, marriages, and relationships as well. Are you pulling out the best in that person? And not only does it benefit that person, but it benefits the coach, because if you're bringing out the best in your player,
right,
you're going to get the best. And I again, did not want anybody holding your hand. Can I tell
what?
the phone call I got from Coach Beeline?
Oh, sure.
So
me being late.
Yeah. So Stuart was late for it wasn't a practice. It was a shoot around. I don't know, whatever.
It was like our
weightlifting.
It was like the first practice.
Okay. And he.
Well, there's 2 times. It was the second time.
Can I tell the whole story?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and he blamed this one's relationship with his girlfriend on him being late. And I'm going to.
I wasn't home. I was over there.
You weren't home. You were over there.
Yeah.
And can I really tell the whole story?
I mean, you can
dance around it.
Yeah.
Okay. So he called me and he said, this relationship, and again, these aren't exact words because it was many years ago, but this relationship is not the best for Stuart. It's not, this isn't going to work.
Worried that that was a distraction.
And I said, you do whatever you have to do. If you need to suspend him, kick him off the team, I don't care. I said, but I will tell you this. I said, my son has found someone that he cares deeply for, and that makes me as a mother very proud and very happy. And that was the end of the conversation.
Yeah.
There's more to it, but I won't go into further detail.
No, a funny thing you said where you're like, well, think about somebody not in a relationship.
Well, I did say, and then, I said, I'd rather
at least know where he's home.
I said, I'd rather have him with one person than
going around not
knowing where with every other.
That was good.
Girl on campus.
That was very slick.
Yeah. So that kind of just ended that conversation. But, the point being is that, again, never wanted anybody to hold your hand, but I think it is important to bring out the best. And I think coaches, it's a growing process and a learning process for them too. If I'm looking specifically at
each player
for Coach Beeline, where he came from, jumping into the Big Ten, I think, and again, I'm kind of rambling, so slow me down here a little bit.
Not you.
Yeah, no, I would never do that. But I think about the different approach the coaches have to take with kids today who come out of high school thinking their poop doesn't stink. Versus kids who just want to go play. And does that make sense? You get a lot of kids coming out of high school who are all that in a bag of chips, and they walk into a big time program and they're not all that in a bag of chips. And the adjustment for that kid.
I want to clarify that everyone talks about this generation doing that. Every generation has those people.
Hold on.
And has those kids. And we dealt with it at Michigan, and the generation before us did, and the generation before that.
I know, but I think of like Bobby Knight and the chair. I think about Bobby Knight and the way he coached his players. He would no more, I don't think, have gotten away with that in even your era.
No, he wouldn't have gotten away.
Right. That's my point. And so I think, again, I'm rambling. Forgive me. It's what I do. But I think coaches, it's a learning curve for them too. And I think that, and again, you've talked about this, the progression of Coach Beeline. I can't speak about other coaches, but the progression of how he changed towards his players, I think was a tremendous commentary on his willingness to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
He was always wanting to learn new things and do new things. And it's funny when you're a head coach and you're like, this is what brought me to this point. This is why I've had success. And then you got to go, wait, I have to reevaluate things.
It sucks. Nobody wants to do that. Listen, change. There's two kinds of change, right? There's the kind you ask for and the kind that is thrust upon you.
Yeah.
And they both suck. And they both suck because we're not built as humans to really adjust to change well. And so it takes time, and you had to change as a player, and coaches have to change, and also try to win at the same time and deal with 18, 19, 20-year-old boys.
Fun.
Yikes. No, thank you. It's a hard pass for me.
I didn't want to deal with them when I was 18, 19.
Exactly. But so I don't know, we were on the recruiting and we got kind of off track. Sorry about that. But that's, how I saw things. But going back to you thinking I wasn't proud or didn't think that you were good enough or worthy.
Geez. That was a joke.
Oh,
Nancy.
Okay. Oh, I wasn't sure.
It's always a joke.
Well, you never want to think that
I know you're proud of me.
Yeah, extremely. You want to know one of my proudest moments? And this probably has to do more with me than with you. Well, obviously the shot at Michigan State was a big deal. But when you played Duke and Coach K sought you out twice, do you remember that? He came up to you after the game.
Yeah.
And told you what a great player you were.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he sought you out again in the tunnel. And I thought to myself, and he said, I forget what he said. He was complimenting your teammates, complimenting the way you guys all played together.
No, there's a funny story. I'll tell after you.
Okay. But, and I thought to myself, if that man, and maybe he's not a great guy, I have no idea, but I know there's some stories and I've heard them, but a great coach. And for him to recognize that about you and about your teammates, that made me really proud, because you want people to see that. Yeah. You want people to see,
it was a funny lesson, because he came up and he was like, the second time in the tunnel, he said, in the back hallway, something to the effect of, you guys are very connected.
Yeah.
On this, seems like you guys have maybe he said like good relationships. You're like very connected, and it's noticeable. And I'm like, we're not the really best of friends, to be honest with you. But it was like, oh, that's cool that we can still. You don't need to be best friends.
No.
To play your role and be together and do the right thing. And I always thought that. And I think sometimes guys, they get a little sore over it because they're like, so-and-so doesn't like me. And it's like, just do your job. Just do your job.
So you actually thought that you had teammates that didn't like you?
I mean, maybe like I'm kind of doing my own thing. And I'm like, at that point was a junior, but a senior leader. And I know what's right. I know what coach wants. I know how to do things. And I don't deal with any bullshit, like don't blow smoke up my butt.
Right.
Like any posturing between teammates is stupid. It's not going to accomplish anything. Whining isn't going to accomplish anything. Crying isn't going to accomplish anything. And that was a big turning point in that season, is when we stopped whining and crying. And then we turned the corner at Michigan State. But
yeah, because
I'm not that. I've gotten better with being more empathetic and being like, okay, this is why this person is saying this, right, and then dealing with it. But like sometimes, you can't deal with it. You got to just tell them to shut up, or be like, no, that's just wrong.
Well, I think when you come in as a freshman, as an 18-year-old kid, you're just thinking about yourself and how long.
Yeah.
I mean, there's degrees of that, but how long does it take a player to buy into whatever system is that the coach is trying to run?
That's another myth, is that you're never unselfish. There's never zero selfishness in a player. Like even the guy, the walk-on who will sacrifice and dive on every ball and do whatever, he's doing that to
be-
play and get in the game.
Of course.
So like it's unselfish for the team, but he's doing it for selfish reasons, for playing. Like he wants to be on the court and be seen.
Right.
So everyone has that. They want that success, whatever their success is. Like we always deem success in one way. It's a million different ways for a million different people.
Right.
So everyone has a little bit of selfishness, and you have to accompany for that. That has to be baked into the bread. And a lot of people don't really realize that. And I forget what you just asked.
Well, no, most people, meaning fans, don't realize that, or players don't realize that. Who doesn't realize that?
I think both. You have to accept it. Like you got guys, there's always like the top guy. Okay, you got like the top talent who's seeking, like, let's say we had Manny and Deshaun.
Yeah.
We had Darius and Trey and Tim. Like those are the main guys that were like, I'm making it to the league. I'm going to the league. I'm making it to the league. And that was on their mindset every game. After every game, did I play well enough to like further my dreams? And I would never, ever fault them for that. And I would only want to foster that because it'll make them harder and more focused. Yeah, you can, sway off the path and maybe get a little too selfish in certain things, but like you want guys going after that. It's how you foster it and bring it together. And again, bake it into the full team bread. And then how, to lift the whole team up.
As an observer, though.
Ooh, to have the bread rise. Oh man, what a good, that was really good.
Yeah, that was good too.
Jeez.
And I lost my train of thought here because that happens too.
Mm-hmm.
But it is, you always knew, or I always knew, as a parent, because I was being selfish and wanted you to shine, but I wanted the team to win. You could always tell when a player was, thinking about being seen and wanted to get theirs, as I used to call it.
Yeah, that's what.
Then being not unselfish, because like you're right, nobody's unselfish, but at least understanding that there's a whole big picture and a whole big spectrum of what makes me shine as a player, and especially for like a point guard, it's knowing when to pass the ball, and that was always I'd sit up there and go, pass the ball. Please pass the ball or shoot if it's appropriate, but pass the ball. And not necessarily to you, just pass the damn ball. But that was my thing.
You and Dad.
Well, I kept
Dad was,
he
doesn't even like basketball, and Rajon Rondo is his favorite point guard, so, who never shoots. So that can tell what you guys liked in a point guard. That is changing. Like Rajon Rondo is just, he still exists, but those types don't really exist.
No, I understand that. And I get that. And again, where were we in this conversation? I have no clue. I know.
Well, you're infamous. Speaking of being in the stands, you're infamous for your potty mouth.
So no. So
sailor's mouth. I think.
The drunken sailor or something like that. Yeah. But I was your dad was actually louder in the stands than I was, because I learned my lesson in junior high when I almost got kicked out of a couple of games.
Oh, so yeah, quick story for the people, just a little background on Nancy. She knew the refs by name when I was a kid, local refs, and she'd be on the sideline front row. My dad would be sitting up a few rows, so he couldn't sit next to her.
He refused.
And she would just be yapping at the refs, going off, maybe not even knowing what was going on, but those refs were going to get it.
No, they did. And then a little bit in high school too. Although
that was harder because we had a bigger gym and you couldn't quite.
I stayed tame in high school because I didn't want to make a fool of myself, which I had accomplished when you were in junior high. So, and then at Michigan, I didn't say a peep.
No, loud. You just cussed me out in the stands.
Never.
Yeah, right. I'll never forget, some volleyball girls were up in the stands. They're like, your mom she really knows that to cuss up a storm.
I kind of remember sitting there going, Stuart, like that. Yeah, that I did, but I never yelled at anybody.
No, just me.
So your dad finally was able to sit with me because I was tame. But it's nerve-wracking to watch your children. And I don't care if you've got a kid that's an athlete or on a debate team or a chess player. There's so many things that come into play with that. And again, a lot of it is all this hard work that you put in. And it's not that you don't want your kids to be disappointed. I think disappointment is hugely important. But you get caught up in it partly for your own ego. It's like when
Sure.
when you had a really good game, and especially when you hit that shot at when you played the UCLA game your freshman year and you hit the shot at Breslin, et cetera, et cetera. I'm Stu Douglas.
Maybe you could peacock a little bit.
Right. And I'm fully honest about that, but it's, you love your children so much that you want what they want.
Mm-hmm.
But I also understand that sometimes, as I used to say to you and your brother and your sister, sometimes you do A, B, C, hoping to get D. And sometimes you do A, B, and C, and you get X, and it throws you off your little worldly axis because you don't know what the hell just happened. So, it doesn't always turn out the way that you want it to.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody knows that because everybody's experienced that. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's actually a wonderful thing to have happen. But in the midst of watching, the game and the actual energy that you put out there, you want you to do well.
Right.
I wanted you to do well.
Of course.
Yeah. So, and you did.
Okay. So let's talk some Michigan basketball. My time.
Mhm.
What was your favorite place to travel to watch games, and your least favorite?
Well, my least favorite was Purdue.
I
mean, seriously,
you almost got in
people,
a fist fight.
No, but I got yelled at for nothing. Get the F back on the bus. Go back to where you effing came
In
from.
the bathroom, right?
Coming out of the bathroom, and then this is a great story. So they always put the parents, down low from the opposing team, so everybody knows who the opposing parents are. Plus, I'm wearing Michigan garb, which I never did again after.
Wow.
No, I'm kidding. I think I did. But anyway, so we're sitting there, and I hear this guy yelling, and I simply turn around to look, and this woman starts pointing at me and like literally spitting. And she's like, I can't even remember what she was saying, but she was just going off on me. And I didn't answer her. And the next thing I know, so for everybody, my sister-in-law is married to a huge Purdue fan contributor, works for Purdue. He's kind of a big deal at Purdue. And they're sitting across the way, and I get a text from my sister-in-law, and she says, did you just get yelled at by some woman? And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, that's a friend of mine. And she just texted me and said, is that your sister-in-law sitting down there? So it was awful.
How would she not know that one of you is
I don't know.
Is her sister?
Anyway, it was terrible. And then other parents were sitting way up top. And one of them got yelled at so much it made her cry. So Purdue was hands down my least favorite place. It's like, get a life, people. I understand. I've always understood the loyalty to team. I think it's fabulous. It's what makes sports so exciting. But you cross the line when you're cruel to people for no reason. And these people were just mean. Yeah, like somebody yelled at me to get back on the effing bus coming out of the bathroom. Okay.
So funny.
Okay. Well,
what bus?
What bus? I drove here. I live 45 minutes away, but whatever. And my favorite place, well, because your dad and I went to the University of Wisconsin, that was fun for us to go back. And then Northwestern, because there were more fans, Michigan fans in the stand than there were Northwestern fans. But I think my favorite place to play, for you to watch you play, was Wisconsin. Iowa was weird.
That was weird.
Yeah, Minnesota is a weird floor.
Fake
but
Hinkle Fieldhouse.
But a great town. So I'd have to say I'm adamant about my least favorite, but my most favorite is just, I don't think I really had a most favorite.
Were you at Madison? You weren't at Madison Square Garden, were you?
No, we didn't come to that game. We don't talk about that.
That's my favorite place.
Yeah. I was just going to ask him. Yeah, for so many reasons.
Oh yeah.
I mean, what a thrill to be able to say you played there.
It's just a cool gym.
Yeah.
Trying to think of something else that might be wrapping up the podcast. How excited are you to watch watch Michigan basketball this year? Because you've been keeping up. And how
I've been-
excited are you to go to a game with me this year?
I'm very excited. to go
First
to a
one
game. Yeah.
we'll ever go to together.
I know. Yeah. It's been hard having you away, and just thrilled to have you home and all the good stuff that's happening to you. You know, that's a whole other story.
So why don't you like Juwan Howard?
I love Jawan. I loved him. I loved him in those McDonald's commercials.
Wait, what?
Wait, what commercial was he when somebody goes, Joanna French fry?
Was how long ago
Right?
was this?
Oh my God,
The
years
90s?
ago. Yeah, probably.
That's hilarious. I'll need to ask him.
But don't quote me on that, and maybe edit this out. But I swear to God, it was
Joanna.
Joanna. It was a little kid saying Joanna hot French fry or something like that. But don't quote me. No, lots of respect, and I am excited, and I think that you know, he obviously, having been a player, understands how to coach young men. But I'm sure it's a learning curve for him too. So I am super excited to watch it, and super excited to get back up to Ann Arbor. It's one of my favorite towns.
Blue Tractor, here we come.
Blue Tractor, here we come. Tim, my favorite bartender, if he's still there. It's just a great place. So yeah, we need to make plans for that, because I'm super pumped about it.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah,
we will do that. Predictions for they're supposed to win the Big Ten.
Well,
them in Purdue.
I cannot. Really?
Oh yeah.
Sorry. And I have to say that Matt Painter was very nice to you during the recruiting process. He called and said to you, Stu.
Well, yeah, he left me a voicemail during lunch. He knew I wouldn't pick up during school.
You picked up the phone and answered it as you were walking into the bathroom, and it was him.
I'm saying, when he told me that they weren't recruiting me anymore because they offered Ryan Smith. He called me when I was in school, knowing damn well I wouldn't pick up.
But at least he called.
No, he was the only person.
Some players drop you like the coaches drop you like a hot potato, and
which was everyone. Yeah.
Which was pretty much everyone. That is correct.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it.
Do you remember? Yeah, do you remember AAU? Your junior year in Vegas, and you got off the elevator crying. I opened the hotel door. You flopped yourself on the bed and you said, "That's it. My basketball playing days are over. I'll never get recruited by anybody." Do you remember that?
I don't know if I went that drastic.
Yes, you did.
I don't remember that at all.
Oh, it was yeah.
Well, I mean, it was pretty close. That was a term that sealed the deal for all of the big schools.
What it wouldn't say, and forgive me for a second while I try to remember this and I don't screw it up. The biggest mistake, and I'm paraphrasing, the biggest mistake you could make is only watching a player play one time. And it's not, I'm not quite quoting it correctly. You can look it up, but yeah, you did not play well, and your team sucked. You sucked, and you thought it was all over.
Thank God for that first game in front of Beeline.
Yeah. He came to watch somebody else. Him and Mahoney.
I don't think they came to watch somebody else.
No.
Because nobody else was good on that.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
But it was Mahoney.
It was the
only, like, one of the only coaches at the game in Louisville.
Oh, I'm thinking of the shooting the top Indiana players. Didn't he come to that too?
Oh, maybe. A bunch of coaches were there.
Yeah. A bunch of coaches were there. And it was Mahoney who said, "Hey, you need to watch this kid shoot the ball."
Yeah.
But you're talking about, yeah. Interesting. It's been an interesting journey, and so many ups and downs. And again, you can't protect anybody from the downs.
No.
But it's made you who you are today.
Correct.
And I certainly wouldn't trade that for anything, but I'm not very,
I'm perfect.
I'm not very objective.
Not really.
No, not at all.
But I'll take it.
Okay.
I need that in my corner.
There you go.
I think that wraps it up.
All right.
We'll have to have you back.
That was no.
Congratulations on
no,
your
because
first
this will be your lowest rated podcast of all time.
Well, the most moms will listen. I can guarantee that.
Well, I don't know if there are any moms listening, but okay.
I don't know if I get too many moms.
Probably not.
I need to. This is why you're on. I need to.
Is that why? No, I think the reason I'm on is because other people at the last minute couldn't show up.
This is true too.
But that's okay. That's what.
But you've been in the works and the plans for a while now.
Oh, have I really?
It's supposed to be a Mother's Day episode, but that's a ways away.
Well, I'd be happy to do it. Next time we'll drink together. We'll have some cocktails.
Oh yeah, that'll be fun.
Okay, I bet.
I gotta reestablish that episode.
Okay.
Well,
All right.
thank you everyone for listening, and stay tuned. Hopefully we'll have some more former and current players on, some stuff in the works. Thank you, Nancy
Thank you.
Douglas.
Thank you.
And we'll catch you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.